me get it on record. Then we also went on to mention the third constraint, which is the project budget. Your project budget is a composition of all the possible costs that could come in the implementation or in the project lifecycle, okay? All the costs that could come within the project lifecycle. So from initiation down to the closure of the project, all of those costs are factored in and then put together as budget. So whether you want to talk about communication cost, human resource cost, procurement cost, which other cost do you want to talk about? A risk management cost, every other cost you want to talk about, they are all embedded in the budget. And one other thing is that every other breakdown you want to do, they are all included in the scope. And every other time management you want to do, they are all included in the time. So that's why these three are considered as the major constraints that determine the quality, the quality of the output of a project. All right. Okay. So coming down to the project management related endeavors. Remember, I just spoke about the three constraints to project: scope, time, and budget, right? And then from there, we spoke about the project management related endeavors, where we looked at the project of operations management. We looked at strategic management. We looked at programs management, and we looked at portfolio management. Directly, project management is associated with programs and portfolio, but we have other fields that also play their role in project management, of which strategic management is part of it and operations management is part of it. Okay, and we also mentioned that strategic plans are the things that give birth to projects, while the outcomes of project give birth to operations. Strategic plans give birth to projects, while the outcome of projects give birth to operations. However, all of these together, joined together, they are all considered as the product development cycle or product management. Okay, all of these compositions in one piece is considered as product development or product management life cycle. Okay, from the product management life cycle, you get to have a strategic plan on which projects to do and what operations they will launch you into. All right. Okay, then from there, we went on to looking at factors that affect projects. And that was where we stopped yesterday. So from the factors that affect project, we look at the enterprise environmental factors, and we looked at the organizational process assets. And on the enterprise environmental factors, we say they are the conditions, the factors that are outside of the control of the project team, and it could be internal or external to the organization. They are factors outside of the control of the project team, and they could be internal or external to the project organization, but they have the capacity, the potential to influence and impact a project either positively or negatively. And we looked at some of those EFs, enterprise environmental factors that could affect project. We looked at things like government regulations. We looked at things like standards, political climate, sociocultural changes, market trends, technological advancement, legal structures, and a whole lot of others, international conventions, and a whole lot of others. Okay, and then we looked at the organizational process assets. Now, on the organizational process assets, the organizational process assets are internal to the organization, and in most cases, they are the things that determine the success factors for an organization to be able to carry out a project. Success factor in terms of determining their capacity and capability in handling projects. So when we look at OPAs, we are looking at things like their past experiences, their lessons learned, their statements of account, their processes, their procedures, their policies, their corporate-based knowledge, their human capital. Those are the things we are looking at, okay? their infrastructure, their capability to deliver. Okay, those are the things we are looking at to be sure that they will be able to deliver to a project. And amazingly, whether you are currently a project manager or not, when you are involved in contracts, contracts are projects, right? When you are involved in contracts, from the initiation stage of contract, which is expression of interests, request for information, and all of that, you have to establish that you have good understanding of the enterprise environmental factors that play. So that's where you're, like Nigeria in a case, you'll be expected to submit your compliance documents. Okay, you'll be expected, while you're submitting your proposals, you attach your compliance documents. In Nigeria, we have the tax documents, social insurance documents, ITF, Industrial Training Fund clearance, the IRL. For those of us in the training and development industry, you must be accredited by the Nigerian Council for Management Development. Okay, those that are into engineering, you have your COREN, you have your Nigerian Institute of Builders license, those in architecture, you have all of that. So those compliance documents establish your EF. And then when you now begin to write, you now begin to talk about your experiences, you talk about your capacity to deliver. So your processes, your policies, the CV of your staff, where necessary, those comprise of your OPA. So when we talk about EFs and OPAs, we are not talking jargons. We are talking about things that we do every other time, especially in managing contracts, okay, in managing project contracts, all right? Okay, and then from there, we're going to go into stakeholder management. So our class today is to begin with stakeholder management. Now, in case you have not, or you missed the first class, I will recommend that you visit our YouTube channel to get the recorded classes. IPM International. Just visit YouTube and search for IPM International, and then you will get all the discussions we've had so far. Okay. All right. Now, permit me to one more time remind us that project management remains the most needed skills, competencies, and knowledge in today's work. If you have not mastered project management skills, you've not mastered project management competencies and knowledge, then you need to pay attention to it. Okay, you need to pay attention to it. I think it was last week, I got a call from, we do have a partnership with University of Lagos. So once in a while, we go there to train either their staff or train their community generally. So someone called me from there, said a lecturer who is an engineer, an engineering lecturer, sent to one of another lecturer, and then the lecturer called and was like, I have this contract that's in Lagos there. I have this contract, and I've gotten a brief from an insider that the only thing that would disqualify him from getting that contract is if he doesn't have any project management certification. So if you don't have any project management certification, there is no need to apply. That is the major differentiating factor. And according to him, he said the person inside had already told him that in all of the organizations that are submitted, no one has project management certification, not them as an organization, and not the people they've submitted as part of their OPA. So anybody that could provide any proof of project management certification will have an advantage. And he wanted to find out if we can go ahead and give him the certification, then he will He will make the payment, get the certification that same day, and then he will now come and attend lecture. Okay. So we told him that that was not possible. It was not possible. So that establishes what the project management field is doing right now. And if you wish, you can go ahead and find out, even from the federal jobs. You know, there was this notion that federal jobs, they don't really pay attention to performance. I think that was before, not now again. In Nigeria, as a case, there is a high demand for professionalization. And project management is one of those fields that are getting professionalized. Okay. And then you look at the international communities too, especially for those of us that have interest in maybe NGOs, INGOs. Even while you're doing your application, they will highlight areas. They will ask you your the level of your project management knowledge, the skills you have, the certifications you already have, so that they know where to place you. That's to tell us the importance, the undeniable importance of project management at this time. Okay, and amazingly, project management is just expanding. Project management is a dynamic field. It's a dynamic field. So if you did only maybe certified associate project management, or you come to the point of the lead project management professional and you think you're done. No, you're not done. You only started. As it were, the certified associate project management, certified lead project management professional, or the certified project management professional, they have just only become foundational to the field of project management. In project management alone today, we have over 15 certifications. Yeah, over 15 certifications. Apart from the standard ones, like we have the Prince 2, we have the Agile, we have the default project management professional itself. Okay, then we have the CAPMP. Apart from these ones, we still have others that are upcoming. So today we have the project professional in terms of business analysis. We have that of portfolio management, program management, data analytics, and all of that, quite a number of them coming up, Scrum Master, and a whole lot. So we need to master all of these things as we proceed. Okay, so one more time, you're welcome. Let's just take a 1 minute sit up, and then we'll come back. Just 1 minute. All right, we are all welcome back. I trust you have done a good sit-up and we are ready to go. Okay, so today we are beginning with project stakeholder management. And I would like us to pay attention. I don't want to bog us with all of the lectures and all of that. We just take 1-2 lines of statement, and then we look at some real case studies. We work with them, and then we proceed. I think that will be better for us, and it will give us much more understanding. Now, when we talk about project stakeholder in a project, what exactly comes to mind when we talk about project stakeholders? What exactly comes to mind? Remember that this is a professional class, so it's interactive. Okay, it's not a default lecture class. So it is interactive. What comes to mind when we say project stakeholders or stakeholders generally? Feel free to unmute and let's have a piece of what you have to share, and then we'll proceed. What is or who is a project stakeholder?
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, what comes to mind from my own experience when you say stakeholders, government work, the first thing that comes to mind is the beneficiaries of that project.
Okay. So the beneficiaries of the project. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
So we have beneficiaries of the project. That's a good start. Does any other person have something to say about stakeholders? Stakeholders. Okay, I have 7 people. Okay, I have 6 people in my class. So we should be able to have good time interacting. Benedictus said,
hello.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, in addition to the beneficiaries, I think the investors,
okay,
the projects are also stakeholders.
okay.
Those who invest their resources, could be material or financial or whatever capacity it may come in, they are also stakeholders.
Okay. Thank you so much. Please permit me to ask this question. What's the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder? What's the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder? What's the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder? Please feel free to share. What's the difference between a stakeholder? Because sometimes when we say stakeholders, what we're referring to is shareholder. So when we say shareholder, what we're referring to is stakeholder. So what's the difference between a stakeholder in your own view? Okay. What's the difference between a stakeholder and a shareholder? Yes, please.
Well, from my own point of view, when we say a shareholder, these are people who are voluntarily involved in the projects. Okay. They voluntarily invested in the project, either through resources or any other means. While a stakeholder may not necessarily voluntarily invest in the project, but he stands to benefit positively or negatively. He stands to be affected rather positively or negatively. While the shareholder is somebody who voluntarily invests in the project.
Okay, thank you so much. So because of time, I will just proceed. The key word that you've used and I love is the word invest. Okay, so one is invested, his authority is his investment. While the other one, called a stakeholder, his authority could be what is coming in to benefit or what is coming in to bring. Now, in business balance, a shareholder is a stakeholder, but not all stakeholders are shareholders. In the business balance, a shareholder is a stakeholder because his stake is a share. And that share could be a financial investment, sweat investment, agency investment, support investment. It could be any kind of investment he has done. So his investment is his authority. Why to the other stakeholder who is not investing, his interest, his benefit could be his own authority. Now, with that understanding, let's look at project stakeholders. From what we can see on the screen, I trust you could see my screen, but in case you're not seeing it, I will share it one more time so it will be so visible. Now, a project stakeholder or project stakeholders are individuals that are actively involved in the project or whose interest may be positively or negatively affected as a result of the project execution or completion. They may exert influence over the project and its results. Now, this definition is all encompassing. Individuals involved, actively involved in the project, actively involved in the project, actively involved in the project, and whose interest may be positively or negatively affected because of the execution or completion of the project. And these same people have the right to exert influence over the project and its result. Okay. Now, if you're a Nigerian, there is what we call Agbero. There are those we call Agbero. Those on the motor park, they have very important role to play in your transport, especially if you're traveling by road in Nigeria. They have a very important role to play. Not all of us consider them as stakeholders in the transport industry, but they are. And now, Agbero man, no matter how haggard he might look, may stop the successful implementation of your journey, may stop your journey from starting when it's supposed to start, if there is no understanding between them and the drivers. As simple as that is, that tells us that irrespective of the fact that that young or that particular person called Agbero, who we do not consider as a stakeholder, as insignificant as we think he is, he has influence over our journey, especially if you're traveling by road in Nigeria. I don't know about other countries. I don't know whether they have Agberos there, but I'm using Nigeria as a case study. All right. Now, when you look at a project, you want to mention or you want to identify all your stakeholders, not some of them. And there is also this bias, this subjective bias that we always have in project. And that's why the knowledge of project management is important. Sometimes when we want to list project stakeholders, we list the sponsors, we list the beneficiaries, and then we say we are done. There are other parties you need to look critically into. For instance, if you are in the contract of maybe organizing, you are an event planner, okay, and you have a wedding to organize for someone. Yes, your major stakeholders will be everybody associated with the bride and the groom. So stakeholders from the bride and stakeholders from the groom, they are all part of your stakeholders, okay, major stakeholders. But do you understand that the person selling things in the market is also part of the stakeholder? In that value chain, he or she is a stakeholder, the person in the market selling things. Do you understand that the bank is also a stakeholder in that project? Somebody could ask how, because they are the ones in custody of the money that you need. So if by any means, when you need the money, the bank says it's not available, then you understand the role they play. Do you also understand that the person that will be transporting you or moving you, the logistics system, do you understand that is also part of the stakeholder? The person that is sewing the clothes, the person that is doing the cake, the suppliers, they are also part of the stakeholders. It will also shock you that when you get to the event center cleaner is also part of your stakeholder. The security personnel is part of your stakeholder. Apart from the event center management, the cleaner is part of your stakeholder. The security man is part of your stakeholder. Okay? And it might also be interesting for you to know that if, based on the environment, there are other elements within the environment that also may be part of your stakeholder. Okay, for instance, in Lagos, there is what they call Omonile. You don't need to know them before you settle them. You just settle them because you came to their environment. So they are like landlords. Okay, they are like landlords. All right. I remember one particular, when I used to be in the telecom industry, I remember one particular event that happened sometimes around 2012, 2013. If you ask me to go back to that village where this thing happened, I won't be able to locate that place. But I know it was in the West, okay? Either Ogun State or Osun State or Ondo State, one of those states. So we got there in the night and we needed to see the village head. All these things, we went there to construct mast. Is it mast now? Mast, yes, mast. We went there to construct a telecommunication mast. That was for, I think that was for Glo then. Okay, the company I was working with then, their work is just mast construction and maintenance. So we got there very tired and exhausted. I remember sitting outside and I slept off. Now we were there discussing sociocultural challenges of that mast. Why the mast should not come, irrespective of the fact the king was trying to convince his people that yes, they needed the mast. And of course, you don't just put a mast anywhere. There, you have perimeter, you have where a mast should be located in order to deliver the best service. Okay, so that particular environment where the mast was to be situated, the king was trying to convince his chiefs and his people that they need the mast there, but they said no, the mast, they don't need it. It would desecrate their land and all whatnot, blah, 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 blah. I'm talking of 2013, blah, 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 blah. I remember sleeping on that couch from the time we came till the next day. And when we discovered that that project was not going to be feasible, we left. I did not go back to that place. I don't know if there was any other member of the team that went back to that place. The major stakeholders here, the villagers that were even supposed to be like the primary beneficiaries, the king would have considered the king as the most important factor. But the villagers themselves said, no, king, we don't want it. Okay, we don't want it. So when you are dealing with project, you want to be sure that you identify all of the stakeholders. Now, there is something I want you to do for me very fast. Please, I trust you have your pen and your paper. I trust you have your pen and your paper. I want you to write something down. So I want us to have a stakeholder register. What should be contained in your stakeholder register? What should be contained in your stakeholder register? Because when you are dealing with stakeholder management, your primary point of call to stakeholder management is your stakeholder register. So what should be contained in your stakeholder register? Number one, the list of your stakeholders. The list of your stakeholders. The list of your stakeholders. So identify all possible stakeholders. Identify all possible stakeholders in that project. Number two is that you want to find out the impact of each of the stakeholders. The impact of each of the stakeholders. If you wish, you may want to categorize the stakeholders, then you now begin to place impact on each of them. So by categorization, you could have major stakeholders and minor stakeholders, and then others. Okay, if you wish to categorize them that way, or you can say high impact stakeholders, moderate impact stakeholders, and low impact stakeholders. But when you categorize them this way, if you go to their impact, you must describe what their impact is. Now, it's important that you understand that as a project manager, you might not be the one executing the project. I need you to understand this. As a project manager, in terms of project initiation and planning, you might not be the one implementing the project at all through the stages. You will have other sub-project managers that will assist in implementing the project. So yours, at the end of the day, after designing, initiating, and planning the project, yours at the end of the day will be to supervise and to communicate effectively and make sure that resources are used in the best possible way, in the most optimized way to deliver results. All right. Okay. So you have to define what those impacts are. What is the reason, or why do we need to define the impact? It is for whoever that is at that point of engagement with the stakeholder to know what the impact will be if he or she does not manage those people very well. And that is part of communication. All right. Then the next thing you want to now have on that list is strategy for managing those stakeholders. Strategies for managing those stakeholders. I said the first one is for you to identify your stakeholders. So if you can create a table where on your first column you have stakeholders, on your second column you have the categories of stakeholders. So you can, like I said, you can put them high impact, moderate impact, and low impact stakeholders. All right, and then you have the definition of the impacts they are bringing, each of them, each of those categories, the definition of the impact they are bringing. And then on the last set, you have your strategy for managing them. Strategy for managing them. Let me go through this again. Please write it down. As simple as this chart is, it can save you time, it can save you cost, it can save your project. Okay, because most often we have ended up passing the right information to the wrong people, or passing the or vis-a-vis, and then which has affected our projects terribly. Okay, it has affected our projects terribly. As a political leader, as an organizational leader, head of department, a career person, you must understand that when you take decisions, okay, it has a repercussionary effect from the stakeholders. Decisions are like you shooting arrows. So if the arrow bounces on a hard object, there is a possibility that it will reverse. So emotional intelligence is required when managing stakeholders. Emotional intelligence is required when managing stakeholders. Why this is so is that all of us are products of emotions, behaviors, and characters, different in different variations. Okay, we have our different shades of character. So every project manager must pay attention to working on his emotional intelligence. If you have high EQ as an emotional intelligence, if you have high EQ as a project manager, then it will be easier for you to know how to manage your stakeholders. There was one other experience I had some time ago. That should be still within that range of 2012, 2013. There was this project we handled in Lafayette in Nasarawa State. If you go to Lafayette, opposite Access Bank, there is one Catholic church there. Just by the Catholic church, I think the bank beside the mosque is a Keystone Bank. There's one Airtel mosque there. We were the ones that constructed the mosque there. Okay, so now when that project was going on, there was a generator we needed to relocate. Just follow me carefully. Talking about the impact of stakeholders, there was a generator we needed to relocate. Okay, and this generator has already been fixed there long before we came to that site. Okay, and the reinforcement, you know, when you're putting a generator, the reinforcement sometimes is double reinforcement, triple reinforcement, just to make sure that the vibration doesn't pull off installing concrete. Okay, so we got there. We thought that particular generator, the concrete, was just something that anybody could break. We were to use a machine to break it and then scrape it away. But when we saw human beings, we said, okay, let's create employment. And this is one thing that most of us project managers do. Remember one thing I said yesterday, the effectiveness and efficiency of your project is a function of your understanding of the factors surrounding our project. If you need to write it down, write it down. Okay, the effectiveness and efficiency in the implementation of your project is a function of the level of understanding you have about the factors surrounding that project. So the understanding of the project environment is key. The understanding of the project processes is key. The understanding of the project itself, the expected products or the expected deliverables are also key. Now, in the project environment, looking at stakeholders as a case study, we are supposed to use a machine to break that in. And I saw youth who said, okay, let's give them work. And since they are saying they need job, we give them work. For like 3 days, those guys, I think there were about 11 of them, they couldn't break that slab. They couldn't move it any inch. So we looked at our time and said, Kai, if we continue this way, we won't be able to finish this project on schedule. So we asked them, how much can we pay them so that we will we'll continue our work. We just get a machine and break it and continue, since they can't break it. Okay. So those guys insisted that we must pay them what we agreed on initially. So we're like, but we have not, you've not broken this thing. They said, no, there's nothing else they can do. That since we want to take back this thing, that we have to pay them that money. Or we have to wait till whenever they finish breaking it. We were there talking, you know, some of us that think we went to school, sometimes when you go to some project environment, drop your ego before you enter the gate of that city so that your ego will not be your destruction. So we were there shouting, especially the person that I was assisting, the main project manager, he was there shouting. I've had the privilege of living in the North. He had never had the privilege of living in the North then. So I called him aside. I said, sir, the project, this breaking of this thing was supposed to cost about 300,000, okay? And then I think what they were to collect was I think it was either 12,000 or 15,000 naira. So if they had done the work, would have been the ones benefiting. I told him, sir, let's find out how much these machines will break this thing. And if it is the difference not that much, let's pay these guys and let them go. If they start this trouble that this English is not solving, it will soon become one that can stop this project and then we'll return back to Lagos. Okay. And as we were there talking, the number of people started increasing. Okay, we don't know how they did it, but we saw that people were increasing, not people that came to see what was happening because they heard voices. No, people were increasing and the mobilization was against us. Even the Mopo man that was, the mobile policeman that was with us, the man told us, say, sir, please, if there's anything people can do and settle these people. I think there is nothing we can do at this point. Just settle them and let them go. We had to pay them that money, and then we also had to get a machine to break that particular thing and then continued. Why did we have such issue? Maybe because we didn't really consider them as major stakeholders, irrespective of the fact that they were considered, I say, minor. But at the end of the day, because of their involvement, they became major. That if we had gone further with those arguments, those fallouts, that project might have been hampered. Okay, that project might have been hampered. All right, so we need to find out, or we need to have good understanding of our project environment before we step in, because our stakeholders are inside our project environment. Another experience I've had in TypePass, now I'm giving experience on project environment generally. Still within that range, 2012, 2013, there was this project that we were to go for in Zambia. I don't know what happened that day. I don't know how I tuned my television and it was showing Zambian program. Till date, I don't know how I got to that particular channel. Okay. So I was just watching that Zambian channel. They were doing a program that looked like that Frank's program, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? So you just answer one question, they say you just won 5 million Zambies. Answer another question, they'll be like, you've just added 100 million Zambies. So I felt like, wow, this country is a very rich country. They're just giving people money anyhow. Okay. So I was watching that program when they called me and said there is a project we are expecting to go for in Zambia. We should start getting ready. And I was like, this is coincidence. We are going to make too much money in Zambia. And that day, I was still a bachelor then. I was cooking okra soup and was watching that program. And at some point, I even felt like answering their questions, sending them messages to answer their questions. So while the program was going on, instantly, something just asked me. He said, do you know their currency exchange to Nigeria? And I picked my phone and started browsing. Nigerian currency, Naira to Zambis. That project was what? It was actually a mega project, but it was in Zambis. It was the budget was in Zambis. And then when I got that currency exchange, I called them. I said, do you people know the currency exchange between Nigeria, Naira, and Zambian Zambi? They said no. And I gave them this thing. Just the understanding or the knowledge of that stopped the project. We didn't go to Zambia because we had to say, okay, if we must come, then we have to make the budget in dollars so that nobody's losing. Okay. And since they couldn't process or they didn't agree that the budget should be done in dollars, we remained in Nigeria and they remained in Zambia. So the project environment and the project stakeholders in the environment are very, very important. One more time, what do you need? In your stakeholder register, you need the list of your stakeholders, you need their categorization, you need the definition of the impacts they are bringing, and then the strategy that you're going to be using in managing them. Okay, all right. Do I have any question, comment, contribution, questions, comment, contribution before I proceed? So I've just briefly introduced stakeholder management. Questions, comments, contribution, any question, any comment, any contribution? Okay, so if I should proceed, kindly type 1 in the chat room. If I should proceed, kindly type 1 in the chat room. If I should proceed, kindly type 1 in the chat room. If I should proceed, kindly type 1 in the chat room. All right. Okay, thank you so much. So here, before we go to the next section, we are going to do a very simple exercise. And the simple exercise is that I'm going to break this class into two. Yeah. I'm going to break this class into two. So just listen. Mr. Benedictus and Mr. Hamza, you'll be in one group. You'll be in one group. Mr. Seth and Mr. Wilfred, you'll be in another group. Mr. Seth and Mr. Wilfred, you'll be in another group. All right. So what you're going to do is that I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, is 10 minutes too much? 10 minutes seems okay. We'll give you 7 minutes. In the 7 minutes, identify a project and then identify all the possible stakeholders in that project. Okay, identify the possible stakeholders, their possible impacts, and how you manage them. Just use the table I just gave now, the stakeholders, their category high, moderate, or low impact stakeholders, the definition of their impacts, and then how you manage them. So I'm going to allow you for 7 minutes. In the Nigerian time, this is 11:46. So let's say by 11:56, we'll be back. So I'm going to create a breakout section. Identify a project of your choice. Then create a stakeholder register for that project. Identify all the possible stakeholders, their impact levels, the definition of their impact, that's the influence that their impact will bring, whether negative or positive, let us know, and then how you manage them. So I'm going to create a breakout section for Mr. Hamza and Mr. Benedictus in one group, Mr. Seth and Mr. Winifred in another group. Okay, so let me do that very fast. And then we have 10 minutes to that. So Mr. Benedictus and Mr. Hamza, you're in one group. Mr. Seth and Mr. Winifred, you're in another group. So you will see a pop-up to join your group. So go ahead, join your classroom, and then have your discussions. In 10 minutes, we'll be back, and then we'll hear what you have to say. Thank you, and see you in 10 minutes. Okay, the classroom is open. Please feel free to join the one that you've been assigned to. Room 1, Mr. Hamza and Mr. Benedictus. Room 2, Wilfred and Seth. Okay. All right, so everybody's in their place. So Dami.
Yes, sir.
So your role is to check them and be sure that they are doing their work. So you're a co-host. You can always move to and fro to know what's happening there.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can join the rooms.
Yes, I can join the rooms.
So you can just
But they have just 7 minutes, right?
Yeah, 7 minutes.
Wow. Interesting.
So by 11:50, sorry, 11:56 rather.
Okay. I wanted to say it's actually 11:50 already.
Yeah, it's 11:56. Okay, let's begin to round up. Let's begin to round up our group work and start preparing to come in. Let's begin to round up.
The attention of the people.
Okay, we are returning to the
Yes.
main group. We are returning to the main group. Our time is up. I'll give us
Okay.
60 seconds to
done.
round up. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So
I
I
think
think
the
we have
last,
some.
the last question would be the strategy for managing them.
High impact.
Yes, it's there.
We have 60
It's there.
seconds. We have 60 seconds left. So we'll be returning to the main group shortly.
No
60
problem, sir.
seconds. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. 60 seconds. So now with the moderate impact, do we leave Taylor there alone, or we should add somebody else with him?
The moderate, you should put the tailor. Just put the tailor.
Okay. Then if the tailor is the low impact, the finishing jobs and packaging, I think it's okay. 60 seconds. Let's just go. And okay, they are asking us to go back to to the main class. So I will see you there.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we are welcome back. Who is not back yet? Mr. Sajem is not back yet. Okay. So I trust everyone is back. So we're all welcome back. I trust we had a good time in our discussion. So let's go with room 1 first. Room 1, please, what's your project and who are your stakeholders? Just give us your stakeholder chart.
Okay, thank you very much. My name.
You're welcome.
For group 1. I am Mr. Benedictus, representing for group 1. So our project is the release of a new music album.
Okay.
So we were able to identify the stakeholders. First of all, we categorize them into internal and external stakeholders.
Okay.
The internal stakeholders. 1, we itemized the songwriters, the vocalists, the sound engineer, instrumentalists, the fund providers, that's the sponsors, the record label, and marketing for the internal. For the external, we categorize the listeners, that's our customers, potential customers, the media, the event organization bodies, music associations, and competition. So based on their effects, their influence, from the internal, we were able to categorize the record label and that's the fund, the sponsor, as high, songwriters high, vocalists moderates, songwriters moderates. While on the external, the listeners was high, media high, event organization bodies moderates, music association low, competition high. And the strategy we were supposed to employ, our lab Mr. Benedictus to speak on the strategy that we employ to tackle these stakeholder influences.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so looking at the various stakeholders from the internal and external, and we see that it's very important to make sure that we find strategies to manage our relationship with these stakeholders. So for the internal stakeholders, we spoke about maintaining a healthy relationship with each and every one of them, the songwriters, as we learned that emotional intelligence is required in managing your stakeholders. So this is one of the strategies we adapt to make sure that in our day-to-day interaction and working processes with these stakeholders, everything is okay, everything reveals our intentions to have their interests at heart. Beyond just benefiting from their skill sets, we will ensure that we are interested in building a relationship with them because they are internal and we will need them along the journey in producing that music album to make the project a success. And the second thing, strategy we will also adapt to manage our stakeholders is to ensure that we produce good products, in this context, songs that satisfies the needs of our customers. Good songs that have a competitive balance in the market that can open up platforms and opportunities for our brand to penetrate into the system, because for the customers, all they need is that you produce products that they can relate to, product that they can jam with, product that they can own as their own, and product that they can freely invest their resources to acquire. So in striving to produce good songs that satisfy their needs, it goes a long way to help us maintain our relationship with these stakeholders. So these are some of the few strategies we listed down to help us manage our stakeholders. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Group 1, for the job well done. Releasing of a new music album, and you classified your stakeholders internal, external, and then from the internal, you highlighted all the groups, or the people or stakeholders that you consider internal and those you consider external. And then you listed high impact and moderate impact according to the stakeholders involved, and then you went on with your strategy. All right, thank you. Before we take a final, or before I make my final remarks on the presentation, let us have Group 2 to present, and then we move on. Group 2, Mr. Seth and Mr. Wilfred.
Hello?
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We during our discussion, we came up with the project on building or coming up with a fashion designer company, which is going to be which is going to produce mass how do you call it? Who is going to be into mass production? Sorry. And then what we did is we came out with the 3 categories of like we came up with the high impact, the moderate, and the low. So in those categories, we put the owner of the company in the high impact, the designer, the models, and the stylist are the people who are part into the high impact of the stakeholders. And for the moderate, we included the tailor. And for the low impact, we included those at the finishing lines, like those who are packaging and those who are into the finishing jobs. That's how we did it.
Okay. Now, what of your strategy for managing them?
Well, the time was short for us to come up with the strategy on how to manage them.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to appreciate everyone for showing a basic understanding of what we've talked about. So if you are given the opportunity now to work as a project community manager, because project stakeholder managers answer different names. Some call them project community managers, project relations managers, project communications, or project public relations managers, publicity managers, and all of that. So if you are given that privilege of becoming a stakeholder manager, I am confident that by default, you understand what is expected of you, okay? You do your research and find out who all the stakeholders are, then you categorize them, then you define their impacts, and then you have your strategies for managing them. And one thing I will say is that when we start listing strategies, it need to be action-oriented strategies. Action-oriented strategies. Action-oriented strategies. For instance, let's take those we consider as high impact stakeholders. By action-oriented approaches, we want to define how many messages do we want to send to them? What's the frequency of the message per time? What kind of information are we going to be sending to them? When will be the best time to send them those information? What will be the best time to have a meeting? What will happen to determine if there will be a meeting or not? If you put those things out in your strategy, it will become much more definite on how to manage them, okay? Then also, we must put in mind what their expectations are. Remember, their impact is because of the expectations they are having. They are putting all influences because of their expectation. When we started, Mr. Hamza said, project stakeholders are those that have, or they are beneficiaries of the project, okay? So because of the benefits they expect, okay, they are putting all their weight to bring in an impact or influence to drive their benefit. So we must understand what their expectations are. In fact, by the time we get to scope management, you understand that one of the first assignment of a project manager is to take what we call requirements. You take expectations and requirements. Expectations and requirements. So for all of your stakeholders, yes, you have them in different categories. So let's take group one, for example, you have internal, I have external. So you could have a general overview for internal. What are their general expectations? That would be like group expectation. Then by the time you now get to the high impact category, what are their expectations? That is still like a phase. You've not completed the whole circle. Then you have to get down to the individuals. What are their expectations? You will agree with me that by emotional intelligence, what people say might not be what they mean. What they agree in a group might not be what they really mean. It might be a forced consign. Like, okay, since everybody has agreed now, let's just go. So your communication should drill down and keep going to you'll get to the last man standing. Sir, this project, we understand that this is the general expectation. Do you have any other expectation in this project? That is called sensitivity. Okay, that is called sensitivity. So you have your sensitivity management. So for each of those people, their individual needs becomes the basis for which they will transmit emotions, exhibit behaviors, exhibit certain characters, exhibit commitments that will match. So those sensitivities need to be well taken care of. And for the fact that we are breaking them down into high impact, remember that the high impact, moderate impact, and low impact is just a category. Okay, some people could go and say internal and external. Some people could say sponsors and non-sponsors, or sponsors and beneficiaries. So dependent on how you want to classify them, okay, that is left for you. So the discretion on the quantity that you use for classification is for you to determine based on the project and based on the needs of the people, right? This is very, very important. So with that, you can go and manage the people or manage the stakeholders according to what is involved. Let me also call your attention to this, that in some cases, stakeholders might not just be human beings alone. Stakeholders might not just be human beings alone. Stakeholders in some instances may also involve animals. So take, for instance, if you're running a security project where you have dogs, and those dogs need to also be taken care of. Those dogs become part of the stakeholders. Both the people taking care of the dogs and the dogs become stakeholders. Now imagine you are running something like a park, animal park, okay, where you have to bring in different animals into the park. Those animals also become stakeholders. Apart from the people bringing them and the people taking care of them, those animals on themselves also become stakeholders, because now there are benefits attached to them. There are benefits they are given to you, and there are benefits you must give to them. So the project must give to them, and they must give to the project. All right, I trust we understand all of these things. And so we can move forward. Any question, any comment, any contribution? I've said that our strategy should be action-oriented, and those action-oriented approaches will be a function of understanding all of the benefits from general level to group level to individual levels, managing their different sensitivities. And we've underlined that emotional intelligence is key in making this stakeholder management effective. Any question, any contribution? Has anybody here had any experience that you would like to share with us about stakeholder management before we go to project governance? You've had a good experience, good, because it's something you still remember, okay, that you think is worth sharing in this class about stakeholders, managing projects, stakeholders, before we proceed. Anybody? Okay, any general question, comments, contribution before we move on? Okay, no question, no comment, no contribution. All right, let's move on then. Project governance. Project governance. By the time we finish with stakeholders, we understood that there are still part of the people within the stakeholder environment that will direct the affairs of other stakeholders. And that brings us to project administration or project governance. Now, project governance refers to the framework, functions, and processes that guide the project management activities in order to create a unique product, service, or result to meet organizational, strategic, and operational goals. There is no one governance framework that is effective in all organizations. A governance framework should be tailored to the organizational culture, types of the project, and the needs of the organization in order to be effective. So what this means is you've identified all your stakeholders. So if you create a framework, some sort of organogram, who is who in the framework, what will be their roles and responsibilities? That's what the project administration is talking about. In the framework, your project organogram, who is going to be doing what? Okay, what is going to be doing, who is going to be doing what? Okay, so you want to have that. And there is this statement here that there is no standard framework that you say you use all across projects. No, just the way that you don't have a standard organizational plan that you say you use across all organizations, whether they are startups or not. No, you can only have a template, and then you adapt the template. You tailor the template to meet your own needs. Okay, you tailor the template to meet your own needs based on the factors available, like the organizational culture, the kind of project they want to engage in, and then the needs of the organization. Now, moving forward, we also have what we call the management elements. Management elements. They are the components that comprise the key functions or principles of general management in the organization. The general management elements are located within the organization according to its governance framework and organizational structure type selected. Now, when you look at the framework, project management framework, you're looking at every component of that project, every aspect of stakeholders. We want to manage everything. But in the management element, you're looking at the key functions, key management functions that will drive the framework. So let's assume that in a project, we have the internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders, as the case may be. But we will understand more that the management operations will lie more on the internal stakeholders, not on the external stakeholders. I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say. In the architectural framework, in the governance framework, both the internal and external stakeholders are considered. But when you now want to look at management functions, management activities, it is going to be much more on the internal domain, which is much more on the organizational structure, okay, that is handling the project. So this is very, very important. And that is where the HR plays his role, okay? By the time we get to the advanced level, that's the lead project management professional, we have a course dedicated to project human resource management, okay? So the human resource manager should be able to understand his role in team management, effective team management in a project organization or in a project work. The key functions or principles of management include all but not limited to division of work, using specialized skills and availability to perform tasks, authority given to perform work, responsibility to perform work appropriately assigned based on such attributes as skill and experience, discipline of action, unity of command, unity of direction, general goals of the organization. General goals of the organization take precedence over individual goals, and they have to be paid fairly for work performed. All these are part of the things that the HR will need to now take care of. Okay, this is Henry Fayol's principle of management. Okay, still on the key functions, you have the optimal use of resources, clear communication channels, right materials to the right persons for the right job at the right time, fair and equal treatment of people in the workplace, clear security of work positions, safety of people in the workplace, open contribution to planning and execution by each person, and optimal morale. All of these are management functions, and HR, the human resource manager in the project team or the project organization, must play his or her own role in this regard. Now let's quickly look at organizational influences on project. Organizational influences on project. We have projects being affected by organizational influences such as the systems, the culture, the styles, and the structures. Okay, now let's look at what we have here. When we talk about structure types, we might not have, just like we said in the management elements and the administrative framework, we might not have a one-size-fits-all kind of structure, but we all need to find the most appropriate structure that fits our organization. And most often this comes with testing and trying. Not really trial and error, but testing and trying and adjusting. Not trial and error, but testing, trying and adjusting, okay? So the determination of the appropriate organizational structure type is a result of the study of trade-offs between key variables. The variables are the organizational structure types available for use and how to optimize them for a given organization. There is not a one-size-fits-all structure for any given organization. The final structure for a given organization is unique due to the numerous variables to be considered within the confines of the organization. Now, factors that determine organizational structure selection. You look at the degree of alignment of that particular structure with organizational objectives, specialization capabilities. In some organizations, they have professional and non-professional departments. Okay, in some organizations, they have professional and non-professional departments. So if that's also be the case, you also look at specialization capabilities. They have span of control, efficiency, and effectiveness, clear path for escalation of decision Okay. There is a principle in management in organizational structures. I've forgotten the name of that particular person that raised up that principle, that divided organizational structures into two. It talked about the bureaucratic structures and the entrepreneurial structures. Okay, the bureaucratic structures might not support for clear path for escalation of decisions, or even if it's clear, the escalation might be slow. But in an entrepreneurial pattern, the path is clear and is fast. Okay. There you have clear line and scope of authority. There you have a delegation capabilities, accountability assignment, responsibility assignment, and a whole lot more. Okay. All of these are factors to be considered in selecting an organizational structure. You have adaptability of your design, simplicity of your design so that it doesn't get to be too complex. I worked in one organization. I should be the first organization I actually worked in. UAC Nigeria, the one that produced Gala. So one day I went to the HR, I said I needed the organizational structure. And the man told me that even him that is the HR, he doesn't have the structure. And when we finally got the structure is like a dictionary. Where do we start from? Okay, it was a big book. Like the structure alone is a big book. Okay, from one page to another, and you're moving. Page 1, page 2, page 100, page 200, and you're still moving, just structure alone. Okay, so we try as much as we can to simplify the design so that it can easily be understood. Now we have efficiency of performance, cost considerations, physical allocations, clear communications, and all of that. I want to ask a question, maybe like me in those days in USC. How many of us here have good understanding of your organization structure? If you close your eyes now, you can draw without missing anything. You can draw your organizational structure. How many of us can do that? If you can, just type 22 in the chat room. If you clearly understand your organizational structure is simple, no complications, just type 22 in the chat room. If yours is like my own those days, just type 66 in the chat room. If your organizational structure is very simple, just type 22 in the chat room. You understand it. You can explain it. Just type 22 in the chat room. If it is complex, maybe you've not even seen it before, type 66 in the chat room. Okay, so I have 66. I'm still awaiting responses. Your own organization is simple. You can understand it. You can draw it. Any day they call you, you can just draw it. Just type 22. But if it is complex, or maybe you've not seen it before, just type 66. Okay, so I have 166 and 122. Okay. Benedictus is no longer in the class. Mr. Seth, what is it like in your own organization? All right, then we have organizational systems. They also affect projects. Organizational systems, they also affect projects. So we have the project-based organizations and the non-project-based organizations. So the project-based organizations, they derive revenues from performing projects for others. Examples are the consultants, the contractors, and they do management by project. They have the non-project based. They seldom have management systems designed to support project needs, like the manufacturing, finances. So they are not projectized in a way, okay? Irrespective of the fact that they're actually a project organization because they are carrying out assignments daily, of which some of them are new, but they don't have clear-cut ways of getting them projectized. So that is very, very important. Okay, so Mr. Seth has finally answered us, and his own is 66. So far, so good. It is one of us now that have good understanding of his own organization. And some of us might look complex, it might look like. So the HR has a role in those of us that DR66. The HR has a role. So you can go ahead and ask the HR, can I have a copy of the organizational structure, let me know so that I actually know where I even belong to. Okay, let me know where I actually belong to, right? Some of us belong to portfolio organizations, like people like UAC. So your own structure might be, it doesn't really need to be that voluminous, okay? A simple page can deal with that, even if it's a group of companies, even if it's a consortium. So we shouldn't make it so complex that staff will not understand what we're doing, all right? So how the organizational cultures and styles. Cultures and styles have great impact on projects, have great impact on projects, have great impact on projects. Oh my God. So last year, February, we were privileged to, February 9th specifically, there was one federal government organization that we trained their staff on a particular subject matter, emotional intelligence, cultural sensitivity, and change management. Emotional intelligence, cultural sensitivity, and change management. Now, that project was done and dusted February 9th, 2023. The certificate was sent to the office of the PAMSEC barely a week afterwards for him to endorse his own signature and then distribute the certificate. Till date, that PAMSEC had not had it. I don't know whether it's even still the PAMSEC there, but the people that attended that training have not been able to get the certificate for that training. Why is it so? It is much more of cultural, organizational norms, okay, organizational norms, all right? So the values, the norms, the beliefs, the expectations, policies, procedures, authority relationship, etc., they are all bounded in the culture and styles of an organization. Then we have the organizational structures. Our organizational structures, we have the functional, we have the projectized, and we have the matrix. So I'm going to just show that very quickly. Okay, so I talked about that management principle that divides organization into two, the bureaucratic control and then the entrepreneurial control. So that's more of what we have here. Under the functional organization, the bureaucratic control is somewhat higher because the power and responsibilities, or the absolute power and the absolute authority does not lie on the project manager, but it lies on the functional managers. And the project manager could end up becoming one of the functional managers. That means there is a line that determines decision. So you have the head of marketing, the head of HR, the head of product development, the head of projects. They are all concerned about one project, or they are all involved in one project. So before the project manager would take a decision, he will have to consult all these people. And that could bring about bureaucratic delays. Okay. However, the beauty of this is when decisions are made, the quality of the decisions are higher than when we do that in the entrepreneurial domain, where the decision could be seamless, but it could be biased. Okay, it could be biased. So that's what we have here, the projectized. So in the projectized, the project manager and his team, they are in absolute control. They have the absolute authority. They have the jurisdiction to dispense resources, request resources, and execute the project, administer the project according to their discretion. Okay, so that's the projectized structure, or you can also refer to it as the entrepreneurial structure. Then you have the matrix structure. The matrix structure is a blend of the entrepreneurial structure or the projectized structure and the functional structure. The essence of this is to further boost governance, just boost governance. And this most often gives good corporate image, promotes transparency, promotes accountability, and all of that. Okay, so the matrix organization is much more balanced in a way. Okay, it's much more balanced in a way. Now let's quickly look at the project management office as we begin to round up this morning section. Project management office. The project management office is an organizational structure that standardizes the project-related governance processes and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques. The responsibilities of a PMO can range from providing project management support functions to the direct management of one or more projects. So in some organizations, they have department that we call the project office or the project management office. Those are the people we're talking about here, okay? The types of PMOs, we have the supportive PMOs that provide consultative roles to projects by supplying templates, best practices, training, access to information, and lessons learned from other projects. This type of PMO serves as a project repository, the degree of control provided by the PMO. Now, by the end of the discussion on the types of PMOs, I would like you to tell me the kind of PMO you have in your organization, right? So the first one we have is supportive, just as the name is, support. Then you have the one that we call the controlling PMOs. They provide support and require compliance through various means. They are supporting you, but everything you do as a project manager, you and your team, you must provide compliance. You cannot go outside of there is nothing like you did it by your discretion. They believe in standards. So to them, compliance is performance. That's the controlling PMOs. Compliance is performance, all right? Then you have the other one, the directive PMOs. They take control of the project by directly managing the project. Now, for other PMOs, like the supportive PMOs, the project manager and his team, they are in the field. So the project management office is only giving them support. The controlling PMOs, what they are doing is that they are making sure that you follow standards. So they are much more of monitoring and evaluation, checks and balances. They are not in the field with you. They can visit you regularly. They are the controlling PMO. But the directive PMOs, they take the project from you and direct the project and manage the project. So project managers are assigned by and report to the PMO. And this is now a functional structure, all right? See, it's a functional structure, okay? The degree of control provided by the PMO is high. Is high. In the supportive PMO, the degree of control the project manager brings to the project is high. In the controlling PMO, the degree is high. But in the support, in the directive, the PMO now, so the authority that the project manager is bringing is low, while that of the PMO is high. So the project management officer is more like a director. The project manager reports to him as more like a director or a superior. Okay, all right. Now, a PMO may have the authority to act as an integral stakeholder and a key decision maker throughout the life of each project in order to keep it aligned with the business objective. The PMO may make recommendations, lead knowledge transfers like training, mentoring and coaching of project managers and the project teams, terminate projects, and take other actions as required. A primary function of a PMO is to support project managers in a variety of ways, which may include but not limited to managing shared resources across all projects administered by the PMO. Okay, so the project management office, most often, they might have several projects they are managing per time. So it's the role of the project management office to prioritize resources based on the projects on ground and make sure that they are effectively allocated. Then identifying and developing project management methodology, best practices, and standards. Coaching, mentoring, training, and oversight, monitoring compliance with project management standards, policies, procedures, and templates by means of audit. Developing and managing project policies, procedures, templates, and other shared documentations like the organizational process asset and coordinating communication across projects. All these are the roles of project management office. Now, quickly, we will summarize with this module on key general management skills. And then by the time we come back, we will look at other aspects. So we have 20 minutes to round up. Key general management skills for the project manager. I'm going to just highlight them and then we'll call it a timeout. We'll take 30 minutes break and then we'll be back. So I will give us 1 hour break so that we'll come back by 2. So if you have to eat, if you have to refresh, if you have to rest a bit, you can rest. Now, the key general management skills that a project manager requires. You have the leading, so leadership is essential. By leading, we mean the person should be able to establish direction, motivate and inspire the team, and align the people to meet up with the project demands. Communication. We say that the primary role of a project manager in any project is communication. Okay, the most crucial role of every project manager is communication. So you must learn to communicate through written, oral, listening, speaking, reporting, and briefing. And I would recommend that you go and master the art of communication. Okay, master the art of communication. The 7 C's of communication, you need to master it. The body language, art of communication, you need to master it. Emotional intelligence has made us understand that what people say most often is not what they mean. So body language could be what they mean, not what they say. Okay, then you have the negotiation, negotiating scope, contract, cost, contract terms, cost and conditions, changes to cost, scope, and type. All these things can be negotiated. It's Brian Tracy that once said that everything can be negotiated. Everything is negotiable. Everything is negotiable. And when we say negotiation, it's not just on finance, it's not just on time. There are several other components of the project that must be negotiated. And that's why when drafting the contract terms and conditions, it must be done in such a way that it will be mutually beneficial to all parties involved. Then problem solving, you have problem definition, distinguishing between causes and symptoms, and then decision making. You have influencing the organization. Yes, the project manager should also have that charisma to be able to influence things within the organization so as to be able to get things done. Okay, so understanding power and politics within the organization is important. Okay, in human resource management, we talk about workplace politics. Workplace politics. If you must succeed in any organization, this is an expo. Okay, this is an expo. If you must succeed in any organization, please listen. Your skills are not enough. Your certifications are not enough. You must understand the place of networking. And that is where office politics come to play. Okay, you must have 3 kinds of people in your organization. Okay, you must have those who respect you and you respect, that's those below you. You must have those within the same level with you, those whom you can brainstorm with and take decisions. And then you must have those who you also look up to, those ahead of you. Those 3 set of people, they are the people, they are where the politics of the organization play. Okay, but most often, those people under us, they are possibly the ones that cause challenges. Okay, when we neglect them, it will cause trouble. Okay? When we neglect them. So in politics of workplace, you want to make sure that you carry everybody along. Not that you are putting others' responsibility on your head. No, that's not what I mean. You must be a people person. Okay, you must be a people person. You should be easy to access. You should be someone that can easily relate with the low, the high, and every other person. Okay, you should be someone that your presence is memorable to every other member of your team. So workplace politics is beyond what do you call it now? It's beyond skills, it's beyond certificates. Okay, it's even beyond who you know that you think can help you. Sometimes in 2022, June 2022, we had a leadership training for directors across, I think about 25 ministries. We had a training for them on leadership development. And in that leadership development, there was this man, is a director from FRS. He said, was it FRS? Yes, FRS. He said there is this fellow of his then that entered the service the same time. He's a director, but that man is not smelling anything, director. He said, why? because he is always isolated. He always feels like he knows the work more than everybody. Okay, and when it's time for promotion, he will go and write the exam, do everything, but will never be promoted. And he said he suffered that particular challenge for over 20 years. For over 20 years. So if he did that for over, how many years does he now have to get to the directorate cadre? It was almost impossible. So we need to understand the workplace politics. And when I say politics is not a dangerous thing, let us understand that. Politics is a social phenomenon. Okay, politics is a social phenomenon. The determinant of direction of politics is the characteristics of the people involved. So if you have people with good behavior in the political sphere of an environment, the direction of the politics will be positive. If you have negatively minded people, then the direction of that will be negative. However, being an emotionally intelligent person, you should be able to learn how to manage all parties involved within your work environment to get what you want. All right, now there are other things I will add here. Next is data analytics or business intelligence skills. Business intelligence skills. Business intelligence skills. So that will comprise now of that having good understanding of data analytics. Now, you know, a project management, you being the project manager, you are the one initiating the project. So before you initiate a project, you must have done what we call feasibility study. Feasibility, okay, when we get to proposal development, that's when we look at all of this. Feasibility study ensures that you read data. It's more like collecting data to make decisions. Feasibility study, if you ask me in a simple terms, is collection of data to make decisions. Now, before you make this decision, you must have good analytical skills. And when we say analytical skills, sometimes some people think it just stops at thinking. No, when you have data, we are in a data-driven economy, as it were, a knowledge-driven economy where what decides or what makes us decide on certain things is the quality of data available. So this is my perspective on this. If you've not paid attention to building yourself on data analytics, I'm not even saying data science because data science might be too much, but that data analytics, data analysis, business intelligence, please feel free. You can take courses on those areas to augment your project management skills. All right, this is very, very important. And that business intelligence and data analytics skills, they are very, very important because those are the things that will determine how well you will conduct your market research, how well you will your report will be, or how quality your report will be. Okay, that particular skill is non-negotiable, especially in times as this. Should I add another one? Start paying attention to artificial intelligence. I've said it before that artificial intelligence is making the natural intelligence somewhat disappear, but that's not actually the whole essence of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, we are starting from the end. We are not passing through the means. So what I'm asking for is that you should go through the means of understanding artificial intelligence and then using that to work on your project. There is nothing we want to do now that does not involve artificial intelligence. As it were, even on Zoom, I can actually upload my lecture on Zoom and leave the lecture to be the artificial intelligence tool will go ahead and be reading out the lecture for you. That's how artificial intelligence has come. But we shouldn't just stop at the end. We should also have knowledge of the means so that when you are building the design yourself, or even if you get to have an AI engineer to build a design for you, you are not building it blindly. You have an understanding. You have your natural intelligence coming to play the artificial world so that it could become super intelligent. Okay, not that we are depending outrightly on artificial intelligence. Okay, so work on artificial intelligence, work on business analysis, and on the business analysis, I'm particularly asking you to pay attention to data analytics. Of course, data analytics is, in simple terms, understand how to use Excel, understand how to use Power BI, understand how to use Tableau. If you must know all, but at least the basic one, Excel, know how to use those ones. I'm not asking you to go deep and start using SQL and Python and R programming. No, I'm not asking you to do that. But if you can, that is good. Okay, that is good. That is awesome. So add those ones to your skills and they will be excellent. Socioeconomic environmental influences on project. So this is where we are going to stop. You have factors like the standards and regulation. Binance is having a challenge in Nigeria today because of what? Standards and what? Regulation. So before you start, yes, we say technology has made business environment without boundary. But also know that there is still a cyberspace. Every country have their own cyberspace, so that they allowed you access to come and work or access their cyberspace does not mean you should do it without paying attention to their standards and their regulations. This is very, very important. Twitter suffered it some time ago. Now it's Binance and the crypto platforms generally. They will have the internationalization. As a project manager, you have local conventions, you have regional conventions, you have international conventions. As far as we are concerned, when we come to project, now listen, the project management we are dealing with here is in line with the project management body of knowledge, which is the international standard. We are not teaching project management in the Nigerian context. However, we could use case studies from the Nigerian context, Ghana context, UK context, US context to teach. But the standards we are teaching here, the principles that apply, they are international. But when you bring it down to the local, you find out that there are standards in Nigeria that are not the same in Ghana. So if we talk of compliance in Nigeria, the authority issuing internationally will say project should be tax compliant, right? But if your project is in Ghana and you take your tax payment from Nigeria to Ghana, it won't work because the project environment is different. And that's why we encourage you to at least get to that mini MBA level where you learn about different standards operating in international environments. Okay, so internationalization has its role to play. Cultural influences. When we talk about cultural influences, we are not just talking about the perspectival cultural heritage or like the social heritage, right? That's not just what we're talking about. Cultural influences are many. Every individual has his own culture. Every group have their own culture. Every organization have their own culture, their behavior, their patterns, okay? It will shock you to note that every system also has its own culture. So culture is multifaceted. So when we talk about cultural influences, we are not just talking about the behavior of people only. It could also be the behavior of the environment. It could also be the behavior of the machines within that environment. So we need to look at all of the elements that make up the culture. And then we look at the socio-economic environmental sustainability. In the present dispensation we are, every project you carry out must have sustainability advantage in it. Any project that does not pay attention to sustainability in current dispensation will be thrown away. And that is an international obligation. That's an international requirement. That when you are carrying out a project, there must be consideration on sustainability. Now, when you look at sustainability, my mentor said something. The definition of sustainability, those days, they taught us that sustainability is the use of current day resources in such a way that it will also be able to serve the future generation. We use it. So my mentor said that definition, in real terms, sustainability goes beyond that definition. Sustainability goes beyond that definition. And that is what the international community is fighting for today. It shouldn't just be about resources. Okay? It shouldn't just be about resources. It should go beyond resources. Okay? It should go beyond resources. Okay. So I believe by the time we get to the mini MBA, there is a package there on sustainability. So we look at that also and understand it better. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. We are going to take our break now. And then when we come back, we'll look at the project manager competency framework.